Today we're going to look at some static skills, both on the P-bars and on the rings. Now, obviously you can do the same movements on the rings and the P-bars when it comes to statics. It's just when you're learning, these are going to be much easier. These are going to be much harder. So I'm going to show you how you can work L-sits, planches, bent arm planches, shoulder stands, things like that, both on the rings and the bars. And then we're going to transition between them, so make the movements dynamic into a cool little routine. So nice and easy to start with, tucked L-sit position. So trying to get the chest nice and open, knees as high as possible, heels towards the butt. That should be quite comfortable. And if you can hold that for 10, 15 seconds, no problem. Jump up, do the same thing on the rings. Trying to keep as still as possible. So trying to hug your side by pushing in and down constantly. What we don't want to happen is this, because then we're going to be like this on the rings. Same thing in our shoulder stand position. I'm going to bring the arms really hard into my side to create a good connection between the upper arm and the torso. And then I'm going to step into my shoulder stand position. So with the shoulder stand position, we're looking for the torso to be at an angle roughly like that, but it's going to depend how close the shoulders are to your hands. And again, if that's comfortable on the bars and you're happy to exit on the rings if you do go over, because there's a potential that when you're up here that you could go over, you need to know how to roll out of it. But if that's no problem, jump up with control into support position and see if you can get in to that tuck shoulder stand position there. Same thing, I'm hugging the torso with the arms. I'm even externally rotating a little bit. So when I externally rotate, so like this, it brings the upper arm even more into my torso and creates a better connection there. So we have the tucked L-sit, we have the tuck shoulder stand. Now let's look at the tuck planche. So two main variations we're looking at. When the tuck position, we could have bent arm planche, which is basically the same as the shoulder stand. It's just the shoulders are now more in line with the hips, or the hips are more in line with the shoulders. Exactly the same on the rings. So same position, it's just a little bit harder to hold. But again, external rotation makes that much easier, and the tight tuck is keeping everything nice and tight. Now we're up in the ante a little bit more with the straight arm planche. So on the bars, tuck position, straight arms, same thing as the bent arm in terms of hips being in line with shoulders. Really trying to get into a very strong protracted position, so rounding the upper back and pushing away. Same thing on the rings, so straight, struggled with that, shoulder didn't like it. Okay, let's try again, going a little bit more different, the entry. Yeah, that's feeling not very comfortable in that shoulder today. So I'm not going to push the planche on there. I haven't done any straight arm planche work on the rings for a while, and that didn't feel very nice at all. So I'm going to cut out that one. Obviously, if you're stronger than me in the planche, you can progress that as much as you can. Now we can start to open out the positions. So we go back to the L-sit position. I'm going to try and open the legs out. Now a good rule that I like to follow with the L-sit position is don't let the knees become lower than the hip crease. So if I start to extend my legs out, the knees are going to naturally come down a little bit. I wouldn't let it get lower than the hip crease. I wouldn't have an L-sit like this. We want to make sure that we're opening the legs out in front, and ideally they're extending in line or even going higher up towards V-sit, as opposed to going downwards. I'd much rather people hold in like this position instead of this. But if possible, extend all the way out and hold there. Again, a good goal to aim for is 10 seconds in these positions. Now, if you can do 10 seconds in your working sets, it means if you go into an easier position, you should be able to hold for much longer. So if you can hold 10, 15 seconds in a straight L-sit, you should be able to hold 30 seconds or 20 seconds in a tuck position. And obviously that'll just keep progressing as you get stronger in those positions. And we can do exactly the same with that shoulder stand position, start to extend out. So just when we extend the out and the come back in, notice that I'm following the pathway of my window of balance. So my window of balance is like this. I need to move up and down inside that window. If I move my hips and my legs up outside of this, so in this direction, I'm just going to tend to back splat. If I go this side, it's going to get really heavy and I'm going to fall back down towards my feet. So trying to extend the shoulder stand up and down like this. I'll turn around so you can see that here. So there, and then opening out and back. I'm a bit limited here due to the ceiling and the ring height, but you get the idea. Staying in that angled window of balance. Same thing with the planches. With the planches, we can just open out. You're just fine with that, as you're not going to open so fast. With the shoulder stand and the L sit, you'll normally be able to take big jumps in your progressions. A lot of people will go from a tuck position to a fully open position in a matter of a week, once they understand the movement and got the position or like the balance right. But with the planche, it takes a lot longer to achieve those. So you tend to go through smaller increments and stay there for a lot longer. So if I go into a bent arm planche position, I might be in like a froggy position, like this, where I'm not into a straddle. I'm more advanced than a tuck because I'm moving the legs this way, but you might need those sort of in-between positions to get you through and fill the gaps, because the gaps will be so big. But normally with the planche positions, you'll go tight tuck, open tuck, froggy position, closed hip straddle, open hip straddle, straight position. You could play around with single legs as well, but that's normally the progressions that people will go. But the end goal being to try and get into like a straight body position like that. But you can see by how hard it is for me to talk that that's quite challenging. And there'll definitely be no talking if I try and do that on the rings. Actually, I can't because I'm going to hit the wall. Let's try this way around. Yeah, again, not the prettiest looking position because that's becoming maximal for me on the rings. And then we have the straight arm planche versions. I can go a little bit harder on the P-bars for sure. I'm not sure about the rings. I didn't like how that shoulder felt, but let's just see if I can open out to a bit harder position. Yeah, something like that. Shoulders definitely don't like that at the moment. I think I'm sore from yesterday's training because it was actually the right arm that felt it there. But you get the idea, dead straight arms, opening the body out. Exactly the same on the rings if you have it, but you won't see that many people getting past a straddle planche with straight arms on the rings. Okay, so we have our static positions. Now let's look at the dynamic movements and the combinations that we can do when we start to move around between those statics. Now remember, with these, you can also play around with the intensity of each of the static positions that you're moving around. So you might be able to do a straight-legged L sit and a straight-legged shoulder stand when you do the static by itself, but when you move dynamically, you might need to still keep in that tucked position to go between the two. And also think about the direction. So if you're going up, the concentric like this is way harder than the eccentric. The eccentric, look, I can hold a better conversation and go slower when I go down. So when learning the transitions, you're better off playing with the eccentric first, staying in those closed, tucked positions, both on the bars and on the rings. So you might go tucked shoulder stand through to L sit, come back down again. And then once you get stronger than that and can do it for more reps, you can then go from tucked L sit to tucked shoulder stand. And then do the eccentric, because that should be easy after the concentric. And then we can just start mixing and matching. So I can go into, say, a bent arm planche to a straight shoulder stand, coming through to a straight L sit, back through to a tuck shoulder stand, open into a straight shoulder stand, finishing in a bent arm planche. And obviously you'll just do different variations of routines and static positions on the rings because they're going to be harder than the bars. So you're going to have to listen to what you have available when you start to put them together and transition between them. But because I've been working more and more at home and not been in a gym environment where they have high rings set up all the time, I've found my ring strength has definitely dropped off a little bit. So I'm going to increase my ring training from this week. So you will see more ring content. If there's anything you'd really like to see tutorial wise, let me know down in the comments. Let me know where you are with your ring training, and I'll speak to you in the next one. Thanks guys.